Hello everyone and welcome to our first installment of the Drone Bay Presents Don't Panic. We're going to be going over some game settings and overview today, but first, what is Don't Panic? So Don't Panic was a previous segment on the Drone Bay podcast many moons ago. And its intent is to be an introductory series that takes away the intimidation factor of trying new things in EVE Online. So whether you're a new player and you just want to learn about a specific thing, or you're a seasoned player and you're trying something new and you don't want to join Fleet and disappoint your FC. So today we'll be a little bit more oriented to the new bros because today we're talking about global EVE game settings and overview setup. Basically building your foundation to do whatever it is you want to do in EVE Online in the future. Some ideas we have for some other installments in no particular order. These are just me and Croven brainstorming. So flying in fleets, obeying fleet commands, what to do in a fleet, what not to do in a fleet. Scouting and tackling, typically the first role someone will take in a fleet, but there is some nuance and skill involved. That there's room to grow there. Logistics or Logi, so these internet spaceship healers in EVE Online. How standings work. So standings are something that's not very well explained in-game, and if you ever see the Z-kill board for the Edencom Gate Camp, which is pure NPCs who have killed people with bad Edencom standings, you'll know that it's not very well understood and for some players in EVE as well, so we can talk about that at some point. Next steps after you complete the air campaign or you're going through the air campaign, and then hotkeys and shortcuts. There are so many shortcuts in EVE Online that I didn't know about, and so many that are not assigned that you could assign. So we'll have maybe a video about that too, some useful ones. And if you have any other ideas for what you'd want to see covered, feel free to leave that in the comment section below. But without further ado, we shall begin with episode 1 of Don't Panic with game settings and overview. So what I have done is I have gone on one of my alt characters and I have completely reset their settings in EVE. And we're going to go through and show you what I turn on and turn off, what some settings do if they're not clear, and just some of my preferences, and maybe which some I think are absolutely required. So, we're going to start with the global game settings. So these are going to be settings that show up when you hit that escape key and you see all these over here. So, we'll start with go in order. So display and graphics. So this first section is really going to be dependent on your setup. I will say go for PC performance first and then quality. You do not want to be in an intense engagement and start dropping frames and misclick or miss a jump or something like that. You want to be sure the game is operating as you intend it to operate, then make it look pretty. I will say fixed window, which is called different things in different games, so it's borderless windowed, something like that, is definitely a must if you're using multiple monitors. It makes it easy to switch back and forth either to your third-party tools on the screen or your other client or other clients if you're not using Evo. Let's see. So, like I said, graphics settings, set these to whatever your PC needs them to be to perform well, then make it look nice. Camera settings. So, these, I'm just so used to being in the middle. I have them in the middle. If you have a high or low DPI setting on your mouse, you might want to tune these, but essentially what they do is this is what normal spinning in the station looks like. So just clicking, holding my mouse, dragging it around. If you raise the sensitivity, obviously the same amount of motion is going to spin you that much faster, okay? And then vice versa, if you drop it down here, it's going to take a lot more effort to spin it around. So tune this to whatever you're most comfortable with the mouse. If you're used to maybe first-person shooters and low sensitivity, maybe that's something you like. I like it in the middle because that's what I'm used to. Inertia is just if you spin and let go, your camera is going to keep going some amount. So if you make it stiff, it's going to stop faster. If you make it smooth, it's going to stop slower. And that's making me sick, so we're going to stop doing that. And then camera center, 99% of you are going to want this at 0%. If you're trying to do some cinematic shots, you can, drag it over here. So you're offset from whatever, and you go over here, look around. But just put it in the middle unless you have a very specific reason not to do so. Camera shake and camera bobbing. These things I am totally used to. They do not bother me at all. There are a lot of people where the camera shake and camera bobbing will bother them. So I have them turned on. If you don't like the camera shaking when your ship is hit, or if you don't like the idle camera moving around at all when you don't tell it to, turn them off. Invert, if you're used to flight sims and you really like inverted settings, this is where you're going to do that. And then dynamic camera movement, similar to bobbing. If you don't like your camera moving when you don't tell it to, turn it off. I don't mind it. I'm used to it. I keep it on. Audio. So, if you mention audio settings on any forum, particularly Reddit, people will say, Eve has audio? Because the meme is everyone turns the sound off in Eve. Technically, it gives you no benefit. It does not enhance your gameplay at all. I would say it provides me a mental benefit because it sounds cool and the music is nice. So if you want to turn it off, you're more than welcome to turn it off up here. I like my audio on. I like to hear my internet spaceships. And I will also say audio is a requirement when you live in wormholes, or at least when you're doing certain ops in wormholes, because wormholes don't have gates, so there's no big flash on your screen. So you have to listen for the wob, 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 wob whenever someone comes through a wormhole. Also say, if you're a cultured gamer, you will turn on this override dynamic music with classic Eve music, because the classic Eve music is excellent. They're all certified bangers, and they make me happy. If you turn on the classic Eve music, I also recommend disabling use combat music, because it just adds to the ambiance. Volume levels, you're an adult, you can control how loud your game is. Inactive client muting, so this one is handy because it kind of drives you crazy if you have multiple clients at once. But basically, whenever you switch off of Eve from being your active window, whether you alt-tab or click somewhere else, this will tell it what to mute. So I have it set to master. If you're on a gate camp or you need to hear specific things, you can tell it to mute basically everything but wormholes, or everything but stargates, everything but guns if someone starts shooting at you. So if you have a specific reason to turn stuff on and off, do that. Otherwise, I just like to leave it on master because I don't want to hear stuff in the background. User interface. So a lot of these are going to be tuning to taste, whether how big you want your text to be. Tooltip delay, so whenever you're hovering over settings, how long, or hovering over items, how long it takes its tooltip to come up. I leave it at default. That's what I'm used to. Notifications. If you hate seeing the orange bar on your cargo containers, your inventory, or your chat, you can turn this off here. I like it, so I keep it on. One thing I will highly recommend is enable window blur. If you have it off, you cannot see through your window. If you have it on, you can't see through the window. If you're in a station, it doesn't matter. But if you're in space, it's really nice to be able to see through that, especially for things like D-scan and your fleet window and your drone window, and we'll get to those later in space. You can adjust how transparent it is. I like it all the way transparent, so I have it here. And then there's light mode transparency. I also have it full the way up. You can toggle whether windows use light mode or dark mode. I use light mode all the time because it makes it the most transparent. Window margin size, I prefer compact all the time, so I use that as the default. But you can individually toggle it if you don't like some windows being compact. Color theme, you can roleplay your faction's colors. I like Photon. You can also make a custom theme if you were so inclined. Maybe we'll make a drone bay color scheme one day, I don't know. And then colorblind mode, if that's applicable to you, they have a pretty well detailed colorblind mode down here actually, so that's neat. You can like set custom ones too, so that's pretty cool. Doesn't impact me, so I leave it off, but those options are there if you would like them. All right, gameplay settings, some of the heavy hitters here. So the first one is auto target back. So what this does is if something, NPC or player, targets you, sometimes known as yellow boxing, that's your Eve vocab word of the day if you're new here, it will automatically target them back, up to however many targets you set it as, from 0 to 12. If you're flying in big fleets with Logi ships, I'm going to basically tell you need to have this at 0, because you don't want to, first of all, if you're not also Logi, you have no reason to target your friendly Logi ships. And you don't want to accidentally shoot them. So I have this at 0 targets all the time. If you're flying solo or in small gangs, it can save you a little bit of click or two to have this turned up to whatever number you're comfortable with. This comes with a large caveat and a big warning. I don't know how often this happens anymore, but in the past, if someone knew you had auto-target back, or they could just warp to you and check and see, and you're doing some PvE content or something like that, and they see you auto-target them back, they might just sit there and see if you noticed. Because if you don't notice, and you hit F1 to shoot the next rat, but you accidentally shoot that Tengu that just warped into your anomaly, now Concord's going to come get you if you're in high sec. So just be aware, if you have this turned on and people you don't know are warping on grid with you, just be very, very sure you know what you're shooting next. Compact. For most settings in this game, I prefer compact because I like to see more of my spaceship on my screen and less of the windows, so I turn those on. Those are kind of up to you. Disable emergency warp. I hate how they have this setting worded. It should not. It should be check to enable it, uncheck to disable it. But it starts off enabled and you check to disable it. But what emergency warp will do is if you are disconnected, you lose internet connection, it will, and you're in space, it will warp you off in a random direction, a random distance. And your ship will remain in space for the required amount of time based on what timers you have going. So this is basically to save you in case things go bad and you're in an engagement, whatever. I recommend leaving this unchecked, which means enabled, so that it will happen. You might have a very specific reason not to do that. If you want to stay on grid so Logi can rep you and you don't get scanned down, that's entirely up to you. I prefer to leave it enabled, so not checked. Dueling, I auto-reject invitations. I'm not here to duel people in EVE. If it ever comes up, I'll come in here, turn it off, but I have literally never dueled someone in EVE Online. And if I do, I don't need an invitation. Map, use Classic Star Map. I used to prefer the Classic Star Map. I have, the new one has grown on me. I will put on screen here what the old one looks like. Basically, old one is 2D and has some nostalgia if you're used to it. New one is 3D, so it can be a little less confusing if you see a jump that looks like it's not that far, but is actually really far. 3D. Chat settings. So these are going to be global chat settings for any chat channel. And then later on, you can tune individual channels, which we will absolutely do for local. But, so go through show info and double click. So basically, if you double click something, will it show info or will it start a conversation in that chat channel? If you can log chat to file, you can auto reject chat invitations. Entirely up to you. I log chat to file because sometimes I like to go back to some nostalgic conversations and go look at them. But this is entirely up to you. Default settings. So like I said earlier, light background is more transparent, so I prefer that. And then show member list, I also prefer to have that on as well, so I can know who's there. Compact member entries, I have this not as default for across the board, but like I said, later for local, we're going to have some very specific settings there. Font size and portrait, entirely up to you, where you want to set those. All right. So that ends our global settings. Like I said, in the future, we're going to have maybe a separate shortcuts video because you can see how many of these there are. How many of them are useful? We'll find out. So that ends our global settings section. So I'm going to undock here and we're going to set up some in-space windows. So let me get undocked and to where I want to do this, and then I will get right back. All right, we are in space. So these settings have to be done in space. You cannot do them docked in a station. So go to your favorite safe place in space and set this up. So we're going to start off with overview here on the right side. So the default overview is just okay. If you are just starting out and you're learning a lot of new things about EVE, don't worry about getting a custom overview right now. This will be here for when you want to set it up later. But I highly, highly, highly recommend getting your custom overview set up for any long-term playing of EVE because it will make your life easier, it will save you ships, and it will get you kills if you have an overview that is correct. Or you will lose ships if you have an overview that's not correct, depending on what you're doing. So, some corps and alliances require or have their own custom overview settings. If they do, they will have a guide on where to get that and how to set it up. But I'm going to show you how to set up the EVE Uni overview, which is a very great baseline overview. It has tons of customization, but the default settings are excellent and you can tune it as you need going forward. So, like I said, in order to set up an overview, you have to be in space. And the way most overviews are set up is there's chat channels dedicated to them, and you join that channel, and then you just click everything in the chat channel, and it sets up your UI overview. So we're going to join this chat channel, overview, parentheses, eVuni. So you go to over here to social, chat channels, and we're going to join overview, if I can spell, eVuni, close parentheses, and join. So you can see down here, it popped up. And you're going to scroll all the way to the top. Most of them will have instructions in the MOTD, message of the day, on how to actually set it up. So we're going to go through that really quick. So this is just an introduction. It tells you where it came from, how it's maintained. So the first thing you want to do, if you haven't touched your overview, it's fine, but I would still do this just in case. So open your overview settings, which is this 3 little dot hamburger menu in the top right. Go to open overview settings and do reset all settings. So we're starting with an absolute blank slate. Then down here are the modules you click on to install the overview. So the first thing you do is click on core, say yes. That's step 1. Now there's these little packs below. So click any that are applicable to what you want to do. I click on both. So this first one's PvP, second one's PvE. And what this does is it basically installs a bunch of preset filters that you can apply later on. So load the PvP one, load the PvE one. Done. The very last setting, so if you look right now, we only have, it's not really an overview, it's just a list and there's no tabs. This last part is actually setting up the tabs. So there's standard and compact. If you've been listening, you know I prefer compact settings. Standard is just fine. So if you have a big monitor especially. So compact log, go. So now we have our tabs here and they have some presets there that are excellent. But the very last, we're not done yet. Just a little bit more. So refresh brackets. So open your overview settings, click the ships tab and close the window. So hamburger menu, overview settings, ships tab, close the window. I'll be honest, I don't know what that does, but they told me to do it, so I do it. So that is set up now. And if you have the non-compact version, these aren't just numbers. They actually tell you what they are, but it defaults to main is going to be bad people that are on grid with you that you need to shoot and places to warp. This one's for drones. This one is salvaging and looting. This one is friendly targets, and then this one is I need to get out of here, so it's celestials and all that nonsense. This one is travel, so if you have a destination set and you're not worried about people on grid with you, you can do that one. Now, if you want to adjust these, there's a couple ways to do it. You can either, I don't have an example here, but if there's something in space that you want to add to your overview, you can right-click it, and there will be an option to add to overview. So this, you see your remove station from overview. I don't want to do that, but if it's something you want to add to the overview, you can do that. There's also, if you look at the Uni overview channel, it tells you what the tabs are, and then to change your filter, how to do that. So if I right-click on one of these tabs, there's filters, custom filters, and there's this huge list of their presets. So say you want, instead of overview 5 to be friendlies, I want it to be in PSI. So basically, if you're not my fleet, I want to shoot you. That's all you have to do. And then if you want to individually add and remove things from that, you can do that in space. But that's an overview setup. That easy. And it looks pretty. As far as placement, it's all up to your monitor size and how much real estate you want it to take up. A lot of people have this top section smaller than I do. Actually, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. So you can have the picture, you cannot have the picture. I like a kind of bigger picture just so I absolutely know what I'm targeting or clicking on. And then as tall as wide as you want it. All right, that's overview squared away. So next is all the other windows that we have in space with us. So local chat, by default, is just in here with all your other channels. I am very much going to require you to pull local out to its own window. So you can just click on the tab, drag it wherever you want. Most people put it on the left side somewhere. I saw one guy, he put it at the very top and like dragged it across like that. It was kind of wild. I'm not going to do that. So I'm very much used to having it above my other chat channels, but on its own. And that's fine for now. So the hamburger menu here, the 3 little dots, click that. Lock window size and position, because you don't want to accidentally move this around. Open that back up. So it's going to be on, remember I have light background by default, because if you have the darker background, you see it's just a little bit darker. So I like to enable the light background just to see through it a little more. Member list, I show compact member list, because I don't necessarily need to see everyone's portraits on the side. I'm more worried about, especially in not Jita, how many people are in there currently. And a trick, if you're in system, if you click on someone, Control A, it'll select everything. But then if someone else comes into system, they will not be selected anymore. So, for example, if you're in a system with 5 people, and it's been the same 5 people forever, Control A on them, and then look over. If you see someone unselected, they have joined since you selected everyone in there. So we'll tip there. Absolutely do not have blink on new activity turned on, unless you really want to, but I don't. And then message portraits. If you want to have the message portraits in the window, you can. I kind of like to have them on, but if you want to turn them off, go for it. Large portrait, probably a little extreme, so I'd go small portrait. Excuse me. All right, fleet window. We're not in a fleet. We're going to form a fleet with ourselves. All right, so it's going to pop up in the middle of your screen, which is a very inconvenient place for that to be. So, a lot of people put their fleet window over here. If I could drag it, there we go, under their overview. Entirely up to you. Some people have it next to their, wherever their chat goes. Some people have it over here. I like it over here. Just drag it wherever you want. So, the other thing I will do is I will, it's already enabled, but it'll start out like this, enable compact mode, just to make things be a little bit more space efficient. If you want to lock this one, you can. Broadcast settings, I'm going to let that be between you and your FC. I have all the defaults on. So, the different tabs are here, fleet broadcasts. We will have a separate video about how to interact with the fleet window itself. I just want you to have it in a good spot. All right, D-scan window. So, if you watch my exploration video, you already know how to do this, but there's 2 ways to get to your D-scan or directional scan. Down here is your scanners. You click and hold. So there's probe scanner, directional scanner, moon probe, solar system. So we want directional scanner, which is there. You can also, if you close this, you press V, you also bring up your D-scan. So we don't want this massive window. So if you're doing exploration, you want the solar system window. If you're not doing exploration, you can check over here to open in a separate window. So we're going to do that. We're going to close the solar system. So here's our D-scan window. So again, up to preference. I like to have this over on this side. Entirely up to you. And then just a note, so any of the filters that you have available for your overview, you can also apply to your D-scan. So it defaults to whatever your active overview setting is, but if you want D-scan to always be, let's see, ships only, you can change there. Anyways, I will also, again, compact mode, big fan. And you can lock it if you want. That's up to you. That's basically it for D-scan. And then last one, drones. I am not in... Here we go. Do a drone bay. But this is not the drone bay I'm used to. Maybe because I don't have any drones. Please hold. All right, we are back. Sorry about that. I needed to get into a ship that had drones in it. So, if you have drones, there is another drone window down here. So we're going to just disable compact mode real quick. So it tells you how many drones are in your bay and how many drones are in space if you have launched drones. So another hotkey, Shift F will launch your drones. So you're here. So I like to have this in the bottom right as well. So under my fleet window. Sometimes I change my mind and put it above my fleet window, but again, entirely up to you, but definitely need it on your screen in a convenient place. We're gonna do compact mode. call my drones back. So that is all of the windows that we have open regularly. If just baseline Eve, obviously more specific things are going to have other windows, and we'll go over those as they come up in their videos. So, thank you for watching. That is the first episode of Don't Panic. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comments or have any recommendations for videos you would want to see covered. But from Theris at the Drum Bay, fly safe.